Okay, I think we're going to get started. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening for tonight's panel on the Tara VanDerveer Fund for the Advancement of Women in Coaching. I'm Jean Taggi. I'm Chief Development Officer of the Women's Sports Foundation. Usually it's Danette Layton doing this, but I got to take her place because she wasn't available, and I'm thrilled because this is one of my absolute favorite activities of the Women's Sports Foundation. We have two amazing coaching fellows from the program for you to meet this evening, along with a truly wonderful mentor coach and a terrific moderator whom I'll introduce in just a minute. I want to give a little bit of context. Some of you know a lot about about the Tara VanDerveer Fund, but I think others don't know so much of the background. So I'm going to just give you a little context for the program. As you probably know, the Women's Sports Foundation was founded by Billie Jean King soon after the passage of Title IX. She wanted to create an organization that would really champion Title IX and of course fight for equal rights for girls and women in sports. Now, one of the surprising outcomes of Title IX has been the steep decline of women in head coaching roles in women's collegiate, in collegiate sports. Before Title IX, 90% of women's collegiate sports were coached by women. And when we started this program, which we began to close the gap in the gender gap in coaching, when we started it about 6 years ago, women held only 41% of those roles. And that's because, of course, with Title IX, men started applying for those jobs and were able to, get better salaries. And so we are now today at 42%. So we went up 1 percentage point since we started the program 5 years ago. So we're determined at WSF to reverse that trend. We're really, with the support of all of our donors, we're really trying to build a pipeline for women in coaching. In fact, in addition to this program, I mean, coaching is really important to the Women's Sports Foundation. We do advocacy around it. We are actually in the fall, we'll be releasing a study that examines, that seeks to understand the barriers and opportunities to recruit more women in coaching, not at the collegiate level, but really at the youth level. Because obviously, when girls have strong role models, they're more likely to stay in the game. And we really do, there's a clear need of more women coaching at the youth level. So that's a study that will be coming out in the fall. Quickly, a few notes about the fund itself. The Tara VanDerveer Fund, which of course was named for the wonderful former head coach of Stanford women's basketball, who we adore. The fund provides grants to colleges and universities for paid entry-level coaching fellowships for women looking to pursue a career in coaching. Our fellows receive hands-on training, mentorship, access to professional development opportunities, and then they become part of a network that helps them really grow into leadership roles, get more mentorship, and really be able to interact with other coaches. We are closing out our 5th cohort this year. And here are some interesting stats. 44 schools have received grants through this program. 49 WSF VanDerveer Fellows have been supported. Now, some of these women got multiple grants over the years, or rather, the universities got the grants. And 6 have gone into head coaching positions, which is really exciting. So I want to just a couple of things. I looked at the list of everyone who came on or is coming on to this webinar today, and I noticed a couple of trustees that I want to recognize, Jama Meyer and Carol Stiff. And I also want to thank the donors. There are a few donors to the Tara VanDerveer Fund who have been with us from the very beginning. And I want to mention their names because they have stuck with this program. They believed in it from the very beginning, and they have supported it constantly every year. And they are Kelly Noonan and Douglas Lee, Dr. Harriet Benson, Sue Schaefer, Michelle Mercer and Bruce Golden, Judy Sweet, the wonderful Judy Sweet, and most important, and sorry, but I'm going to just say she's the most important, Becky Morgan. Becky was one of the founders of this program. She really believes in it and has supported it for since the very beginning. So all of those folks, I really want to send out a special thank you. And lastly, I really want to thank everyone here who supports the Women's Sports Foundation. It's because of you that we're able to do programs like this, and those of you who give us general operating support, that really gives us the flexibility to create new programs like the Tara VanDerveer Fund. So thanks to all of you who are here today. One housekeeping note. We're going to open up for audience questions at around 8:40. Please use the question mark icon at the bottom bar of your screen to submit your questions. We will try to get to as many questions as we can. So now I'm going to introduce Morgan Powell. Morgan, another person who's been with the program since the very beginning. Morgan is our Associate Director of Advocacy at the Women's Sports Foundation. She oversees the Tara VanDerveer Fund, among other critical portfolios. She works directly with our wonderful fellows and leads key gender equity initiatives with our advocacy team. So she is immersed not just in this program, but in all the advocacy that we do at the Women's Sports Foundation, including Title IX advocacy. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Morgan.
Thanks, Jean. And thank you all for being here. We're really excited to have this conversation and make sure that we are celebrating the end of our 5th year with the fund, but also the beginning of our 6th, which we're in the process of finalizing. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our panelists. Up first, we have our current WSF VanDerveer Fellow, Erin Golston. Erin is a graduate assistant at Texas Women's University, supporting the women's wrestling program while pursuing her master's in sport management, which she just graduated, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago?
Yep, just 2 weeks ago, last month.
Congratulations. Erin is also a decorated athlete. She's a 4-time Olympic trials competitor, currently ranked number 2 at 50 kilograms, and a 2-time US Open senior national champion, and is currently very, very deep into training right now because she has a finals match coming up is it called Final X on June 14th?
Yep, Final X just next week. It's coming up.
So not only are you a coach, but you're also an elite athlete. So dynamic duo. Welcome, Erin. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Next up, we have our former WSF VanDerveer Fellow, which is Sam Benzing. Sam is the assistant Nordic skiing coach at Montana State University, where she coached a 2 NCAA All-Americans and the U.S. Women's Continental Cup champion this season. Continental Cup champion is a mouthful. Previously, she served as the head coach at Harvard, leading both the men's and women's programs, including an All-American finish at the 2024 NCAA Championships. As a 2023 WSF VanDerveer Fellow, Sam supported the U.S. ski team at the FIS World Cup. FIS, yes. Sam has taught me a lot about Nordic skiing. I didn't know anything before her and her previous fellow joined the program. And she coached at the National Training Group in Park City. She's a former team captain at St. Scholastica, and she holds a master's in psychological sciences and a dual undergraduate degree in exercise physiology and psychology. So as you can tell, our 2 former fellows, very much underachievers. They're not, masters, elite athletes, training in World Cups. Sam, thanks for being with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Awesome. And then rounding out our group, we have our WSF VanDerveer mentor, which is Brienne Smith. Bree is in her 11th season as head women's soccer coach and assistant athletic director at Clark University, where she led a program turnaround and four new MAC tournament appearances. Previously, she coached at Moravian College, earning Landmark Coach of the Year, and was an assistant at Tufts, guiding them to 3 NCAA appearances. A Clark alum, Bree holds a master's in physical education and an advanced national diploma from the United Soccer Coaches Association. Again, underachievers, all of our coaches. Bree, thank you so much for being with us.
I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. All right. Well, I'm going to jump right into questions. An easy one to start with, starting right at the beginning. Why did you want to become a coach? Was there a specific person or moment that inspired you to pursue this path? Bree, let's start with you.
Well, it was a little while ago now, so it's a little bit hazy to think back that far. But I think I don't actually remember wanting to be pretty much anything else. So when I was in college, I helped coach my high school summer programs, and then I met with my coach my junior year, going to my senior year, and I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what I'm gonna do without this. My identity is wrapped up in being an athlete and being a member of a program, a team. And he said, well, why don't you consider coaching? And I was, oh, that's something I can do. Okay. And so from there, he got me connected with Martha Whiting, was my mentor as a young person. So I was very, very fortunate. Martha was in her second year as a head coach at Tufts, and she was coming off a national championship run. So her team lost with like 2 seconds left in the national championship the year before in her first season as a head coach at Tufts. So I sort of hit the female mentor jackpot. And when I started with Martha, she let me do everything. I was planning practices, I was going recruiting, I was showing recruits around campus, I was doing everything. She fully trusted me to do those things. And so I would say when I think back to why I'm in coaching now, it's because my first experience, I was so fortunate to have such a strong female mentor in that first experience. And so ever since then, I've always wanted to pay it forward. So I'm really happy to be here.
That's awesome. That's something that we see and hear a lot, is especially having that person who can show you that coaching is an option, especially when your whole identity is an athlete. That athlete to coach pipeline is so important. Erin, why don't we jump over to you? What made you want to be a coach?
Yeah, well, there's a few instances in my own wrestling career where I definitely realized the need for female coaches, right? So I first started wrestling when I was 6 years old, and obviously with wrestling being a male-dominated sport, my 6-year-old self walked into that room and I was the only girl in a room full of 50, at least 50 boys, but not only just little boy wrestlers, but male coaches. And it was like this all the way up until my 20s. I didn't have a female coach until I moved to the Olympic Training Center when I was 20 years old. And that was the first time I really felt like I was actually heard. And it was nice to have a coach that went through the same experiences that I went to growing up on boys' team and navigating through this tough sport. It's male dominated. It took a lot of figuring out who I was in this. And I was just so thankful that as soon as I got to the OTC, I had Emma Randall, who was my first women's coach, and then also Erin Tomio. And since then, now that I've been coaching here at Texas Women's University, I also noticed just the lack of female representation at the coaching level, just in wrestling. We are one of the few, yeah, if not only, all female coaching staff in women's collegiate wrestling right now. And it just kind of urged me to change this landscape because I really do believe representation matters. And I almost think of how different my career would be if I had more female coaches. So just even as a coach right now, I just try and inspire and just be basically the inspiration that my first two female coaches were for me.
Yeah, Billy always says you have to see it to be it. So you are all that representation for someone coming up. So kudos to you. Sam, bring us home. What made you want to be a coach?
Yeah, pretty similar themes to both Bree and Erin. Is like I always loved sports. I did Nordic skiing in college, and was always coaching high school groups in the summers. And then my coach at St. Scholastica, which is where I started coaching, so she became my official mentor through the grant. But when she was still my coach, she's like, you're studying exercise physiology and psychology, you're coaching every summer. Like, are you planning on coaching? And I was like, what? Is that like something I can do? So pretty similar to Brie in that way. And we know that's super common for so many women coaches. And yeah, she brought me into it, and is still a really important mentor to me today.
Yeah. Shout out to Maria. Maria has been mentor coach for the fund for 2 years and two different fellows. So switching gears a little bit, talking more about the fund. Erin and Sam, you both, have Erin, you're pretty much done, but you've both gone through the program. Can you share what this fellowship has meant to you, how it has shaped and is continuing to influence your coaching journey? Erin, let's start with you.
Yeah, it's done wonders since the very beginning, right? I was fortunate enough to use this fund to take a sports psychology class here at Texas Women's University. And going into it, I mean, I've taken classes before in my undergrad sports psych classes, but this one was so different because it was very coach focused. And it was just opened my eyes to a completely different world. Sure, what I understand as an athlete as sports psychology, it was just very different as a coach, even regarding how much praise I use with the girls or how to influence motivation. And I was really happy to see what I learned in that class the first semester, I was able to bring into the second semester amongst the team. And also, I would say just really the community with the Women's Sports Foundation and just the other fellows. I don't think I've ever had a community such as this. I've just had, teammates, but here it's like a group of fellows that are going through similar things that I'm going through, and even starting a book club. The last call we had, one of the fellows was hyping up the book that I know I should have been reading from the beginning, but I was a little late to it. But I'm going through right now, Learned Excellence, and I'm audiobooking it, not reading it, but it's already, I love it so much. And I know I wouldn't even picked up that book unless it wasn't recommended through this group. So just a lot of great things. And I'm just so thankful.
Yeah, that's Learned Excellence, which was a rec from Tara herself for our class last year. So we're excited to get that for this year's group. And Erin, totally fine if you're going to audiobook it. I feel that. Sam, what about you? What is the fund meant for you?
Yeah, similar to Erin, where it feels like everything is the like automatic answer there. But in terms of immediate impact, like the funding for professional development and salary was huge. Morgan and I were just talking about this the other week of like, how do you weigh out the funding if some of these positions might have zero funding behind them? And that's where I was in at the time. And so it brought, I guess I had a little bit, but barely enough to cover like a few months of food. So obviously that was huge and a game changer, and $10,000 like meant the world then. And then now, like even a majority of these assistant coaching positions, if you're funded like the one I'm in now, it's still in the $30,000 to $40,000 range. And so that funding is still making an immediate huge impact. Morgan and I kind of landed on there is no way to weight it, right? Like either way, it's having a huge impact. So that was immediate, and gave me more room to really dive into my job. And then the professional development immediately off the bat, like I went to coach on the World Cup for skiing. And so that happens every year and travels internationally. And when I was over there at the time, there was only one woman wax tech. So waxing is a really important part of skiing. So we kind of have the coaching side and then the wax teching side. And so, yeah, I went over and there's only one full-time women's wax tech in the world. There are now two, one that the US hired this last year. And that's actually a direct impact from the Women's Sports Foundation Fellowship. So the year before me, Kristen Bourne had the grant at St. Scholastica. She kind of did the trial run. They ended up hiring her at the end of that season because they loved having her on the World Cup so much, and they needed a women's coach over there. And WSF being able to fund Kristen being over there made that really like cemented that for them. And so then I got to go the next year, and then they've actually started a continuing education program called the Trail to Gold Fellow, and have also hired one woman wax tech. So that's just like beyond my experience, but long-term WSF has had a tremendous impact just on the US Nordic skiing scene. And then like Erin said, the continued community, I think Erin and I met on an elevator this fall when we were both getting to our hotel before the coaching convening and gala. But just having that of like, okay, you're a coach, you must know, right? And then just like hitting it off immediately and having all these shared experiences is huge.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that we don't talk about enough, but the ripple effect when you invest in women, how does that affect other communities and in spaces where women aren't currently represented? So I always love sharing that story too of you and KB and how that whole process has really helped get more wax techs. Again, didn't know what a wax tech was until I met Kristen and Sam. Now I know a lot more about Nordic skiing. Um, Bree, you have now mentored three VanDerveer fellows. So you've had Sydney, you've had Fiona, and you've had Erin Erin Thompson. What impact have you seen on the women that you've worked with, and why do you believe programs like this are critical to advancing women in coaching?
Oh, I mean, it's incredible. So Sid was my first, and Sid reminded me so much of me in the grind at the beginning of my career, working 17,000 different jobs to try to make it work so you could still coach because coaching was basically bringing in next to nothing. But that was what made you tick and what made you get out of bed in the morning. And so we applied for this grant, and I think in the first year we weren't selected. And I actually reached out to Morgan and I was like, Morgan, come on, how are we going to get this grant? Like, what do I need to do? And I was able to talk to my boss and convince her to give us a graduate assistant position. And so, with a combination with the graduate assistant position and the funding from the WSF, I was able to take what was basically a $5,000 job and turn it into a $25,000 gig with a graduate degree. And then it became incredibly I mean, everybody wanted it. I already had a great candidate for it, so I was good. But Sid was able to get her graduate degree, immerse herself in coaching, and then eventually she landed herself a full-time. She's in Division two now, but a full-time Division two assistant job, which pays, enough to be able to live, as Sam mentioned, barely, but but still. Um, and to watch her be able to follow her passion and her dreams and know that I got to be a part of that. I mean, incredibly rewarding. And so she's just one of three stories. And Fiona is young and she's barely getting her. She's like 3 years in and she's already applying for head coaching jobs. She's the full-time assistant at Trinity and she is crushing it. So proud of her. And then Erin was great because Erin, I think, learned so much about the collegiate coaching side. It was like, we don't do like a lot of on-field coaching. And I was like, yeah, no, we do like mostly recruiting behind the scenes stuff. And she's like, I want to be on the field. And so I think she's moved, I know she's moved because she just got offered a full-time head coaching job in a club in California. So to know that all three women are still in coaching and that I had the opportunity to be involved in that, it is truly one of the most rewarding experiences of my professional career.
Yeah, well, I would say also kudos to you because clearly fellows come in and you really nurture them as their mentor. And Sid is a story that I talk about a lot. And that when she came in, I think she had 6 jobs and she was able to cut down to like 2 or 1 maybe. And just something that I think a lot of folks don't realize is that, if you want to make it and you're really grinding like you and like Sid were, it's tough and you really make it work, but it's 6 jobs is 5 too many. Um, so kind of in that theme of mentorship, I know everyone talked about their mentors and who helps them get into coaching, but just wondering if you all have any insights in like what being a mentor. So whether you have mentored everyone's coaches, so you've mentored your student athletes. What has that meant for you, but also helped you as a mentor, but grow as a coach as well? And what have you gained from that experience? Sam, I'm gonna put you on the hot seat first.
Okay. I think having like what the grant does is it turns the mentorship into something formal. And for us, that structure really helped us. So Kristen Bourne had the grant the year before me. And like her and Maria made it so clear with me being on the staff, like you don't have the grant, but we're like going to pull you in any way we can. And so like after book club meetings, all that sort of stuff, Kristen was like meeting with me, sharing things, sharing cool ideas she got from other coaches. And so it instantly created a collaborative culture. I mean, I think before the grant, we would have said, like, we have a great culture. And it just elevated it even further. And then we saw that in our performance with our athletes as well. And then, like, how that has culminated over time is at the Women's Ski Coaches Association conference last year. Maria, Kristen, and I ended up being on a panel that was moderated by Dr. Nicole Lavoie at the Tucker Center. And we talked about how this mentorship had elevated our program and like we could actually put numbers to it in terms of like, okay, we started getting like being more purposeful about professional development for each of us. We started being more purposeful about these certain conversations, and we started to see that ripple effect through our team. So there was that like performance side with our team, and then there was also just this like creating more of a bond and knowing that we have that support within each other that we still have. I talk to Kristen like almost every day anyways still. And sometimes we have like, okay, we're not going to like make this a coaching conversation. This is just a friend conversation. And it always evolves into that of like, hey, I need to pick your brain. I need help. And then like, I think too, having Morgan as part of that and like having WSF, like there's mentorship there from the Women's Sports Foundation, which is really critical and really important as well. So yeah, for us, I mean, the mentorship, as soon as it became more regimented by just like having the fellowship, we started to see a huge impact that was really positive on ourselves and our teams.
Yeah, I think it's kind of hard to turn that coach switch off once you're kind of just in it all the time. Brie, what about for you? How has being a mentor helped you grow as a coach?
Oh my gosh. I think mostly they're keeping me young. Um, it does, I think Sam talked about structure and like really making sure that we're really formal about the process, that being a mentor like with this funding has been like, okay, I'm going to actually take note of what we're doing and how we're advancing, and I'm gonna write it down and have a file I can go back to and learn from. And so having this like sort of record of okay, this is how we can, manage our program better. And honestly, like I've been in Division 3 for uh I guess 24 years now, and I've as a head coach, I've only been a head coach like half that time, but I I've never had a full-time assistant before. And so the WSF has basically given me a full-time assistant coach for the first time. So the last 5 years or so, 6 years, I've had a full-time assistant, which I've never had before. And so that whole process, learning how to make sure that I'm, evaluating them and that I'm giving them an opportunity to see what their progress looks like and things like that. And then also just like bringing new energy and making me see things differently. They're so much more connected to the players that are coming through because they're so much younger than I am. So they can help me relate to some of the things that these players are going through that it's just different now than it was when I was playing. And so I could go on and on about how much the WSF has done, for these women, but like I, part of it, I have to say, like I'm getting a lot out of this. Like this has made my program so much better. I mean, we competed for a conference tournament championship for the first time in our program history, and I can directly link that to having a full-time staff that I can trust and I know is going to be in the office with me and that I can bounce ideas off of. And so it's not just one voice all the time. And I'm learning every day. And I always say, like, if there's ever a day that I'm like, oh yeah, I know it all, I think that's the time for me to go. So I'm glad that they keep making me realize that I definitely don't know it all, and there's still so much more to learn. But I could like take the next half hour talking about this, so I'll let somebody else take it.
Well, I think again, it's just like hitting on that point of, when you invest in women coaches, you're investing into programs. And while the fund is going for folks who are more entry level, that's also helping their head coaches, helping their athletes, and really that entire network of people. Erin Golston, what about you? How has been being a mentor helped you, mentoring your student athletes, and also like as you're competing, are you able to really bring some of this into helping, with that aspect of your current career?
Oh, absolutely. It's definitely given me the confidence in my coaching. That's what I've noticed the most over these past few months, just my confidence. Because I feel like before this fellowship, the last couple of years coaching here was kind of like, yeah, I wrestle with the team. I'd show technique here and there. I'd obviously do like the office work and everything, but I feel like I didn't have as much confidence as a coach in the room. But with my mentor, Randy Miller, she really, I feel like, elevated me this season. Basically, I feel like she took away all my nervousness, right? She taught me that it's okay to have a powerful voice in the room and it's okay to even make mistakes. And I think that's what's helped me so much. But also, even just with it. I had an internship this semester in basketball. I know nothing about basketball. And there was other interns, and I felt myself almost mentoring them just as Randy has mentored me, even though I know nothing about basketball and they actually have the basketball experience. So I was like, yeah, this is how you encourage the team, and this is how you do this. And I really just feel like overall it's given me so much confidence. This is the most confidence I've ever had in my life, and I'm just so thankful for it.
Well, I think it also goes to the points to the fund is like there's just certain aspects of coaching that can translate across the board. So one thing we want to kind of switch gears and talk about, and Brie, I'm going to start with you on this one, since you've been coaching for the longest. From your perspective, what are you seeing that are the biggest barriers from women entering into being a coach? Do you think the narrative has changed, or do you think it's shifting at all at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely shifting. I mean, when I started in the new Mac in 2014, we had I think there were it was about 60% men coaches, head coaches. And now there are only two male head coaches in the new Mac. So we are definitely at the Division 3 level, there's certainly a push to hire women. And so I think it's definitely changing. I mean, obviously, I think programs like the WSF are a big part of that that narrative shift. For me, the barrier that I've noticed at least is not necessarily like entering the field of coaching, it's staying.
Mm.
Um, I've been in it long enough that I've seen a lot of colleagues sadly come and go. As we know, it's a tough field to be in, especially when you start a family. I was actually in preparation for this. I was like, oh, like who in the new Mac has kids besides me? And I was like, oh my gosh. It's like there's the female coaches, like there's only two of us that have kids. Um, and I'm thinking to myself, like all the women that have come and gone that had kids and then they left. And I haven't seen any of the men do that yet. So it's interesting to see how having a family impacts whether or not you have the ability to stay in coaching. Um, you know, that makes me sad. I'm so fortunate in that I have an incredibly supportive wife that allows me to have the flexibility I need to do this. And I think that maybe plays a large role in my ability to stay in coaching. But I think what I've seen lately is at least that we are having trouble keeping women in coaching, especially once they start families. And we have to figure out how we can create environments that allow, that to be a part of what we do. We're professionals and we also have families and we have to be able to support both aspects of who we are. And so that's something that I've really started to focus on in my mentorship is like I've got younger coaches who are starting to have families and I'm like, hey, lean on me if things are hard. Let's talk through it. I want to make sure that you stay because you're one of the great ones. Please don't go. So yeah, I think that's probably when I think of barriers, that's the biggest one I can think of.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we've heard that before, and I think to your point too, like having a supportive coaching staff, head coaching staff, administration within your athletic department, that means the world, and it really means whether a woman's going to stay in coaching or she's going to have to leave. Um, Erin, what about you? You're in a very male-dominated sport, obviously, and as you shared, you didn't have a woman as your coach until you were 20. So, are you seeing anything shift within? It can be broader, just within women's wrestling, but seeing any shift with the narrative of women as coaches, or seeing anything in terms of the barriers for that?
Yeah, currently, girls wrestling is the fastest growing sport in the United States. And with that, I think there has been an increase of women coaches, but again, on the college level, you don't see it as much. And I still think the barriers come from it being male dominated, right? And I think I've seen plenty of times where a man will get a coaching position and a woman won't, solely based just because he's a man. If you put it at like accomplishments together and put it on paper, and I think that's a huge barrier. I think people still respect men a little bit more solely because it's a male dominated sport. And this is actually a question that came up during our coaches covenant in October, and we all brainstormed forever. It was so great, but like Brie had said, it was also family. And I go to tournaments now and I see a lot of the few head coaches that are women. They have babies on their hips. They're coaching the corner and it looks so powerful and it's amazing, but at the same time, like that has to be so difficult. And yeah, I just think that there's a couple barriers, but I really do think the main one is that at the end of the day, males are still being more put on a pedestal over women.
Sam, our Tucker Center intern.
Yeah, I should be able to just rattle these off. No, yeah, like obviously entering into coaching, there are a lot of barriers, starting going back to what you said earlier, Morgan, with Billie Jean King saying of like you can't be what you can't see, right? And so like a lot of us have shared that idea of like, oh, I can coach. And like maybe, yeah, it wasn't until high school or college where you had your first coach who was a woman. And then to follow up on Bree's point of retention, like it is really hard when you do see your male counterparts maybe being able to act certain ways or do certain things that you aren't able to like quote unquote get away with or you couldn't do without a little bit more judgment. And so I think kind of like following up on that of like what's happening now is through this grant, I think we are able to take our experience through this grant back to our communities and create better communities so that when we have those experiences, the resources are there to help keep women in coaching. For Nordic Scene, we've had a huge impact with that and just being like purposeful, making sure that other women coaches like know who you are, know that you're open to helping them find a mentor or get a mentor. I think is making a difference. And we're starting to see that a little bit with the data. The Tucker Center releases their Women in College Coaching Report card that's like slowly going up every year after like years of stagnation. So it is happening, but change takes a long time. But a lot of it can be directed back to this grant for sure.
That's on everything that you all said. We'll do a quick reminder if anyone in the audience has questions to submit those via the Q&A function. As Jean said, it's the little question mark with the talking bubble around it. Before we jump into Q&A for our panelists, just wanting to look ahead with you all. Erin, we're going to start with you. What are you thinking long-term plans, long-term goals in coaching? And do you, thinking about paying it forward as you move, into the next generation of young women coming up into as athletes and then as coaches?
Yeah, I'd love to ultimately be a head wrestling coach at a D1 program. There's only just a few women college wrestling at the D1 program or D1 level, sorry, but I'd love to be one of them one day. And just last week, Lehigh is one of the few that just added women's wrestling as a full-time sport, and I would just love to have my own program one day. And just like how Randy built here, I'd love to have a whole staff of just strong women leading a team of strong women. So that's the ultimate goal. And in regards to giving back to the sport, I would like to continue working with Beat the Streets. Beat the Streets is a program nationwide that's dedicated to empowering at-risk youth through wrestling. And they do that by mentorship, enrichment program, and of course, wrestling. And I would just love to actually somehow start something here in the DFW Dallas area, because right now they have a Beat the Street Chicago, of course, New York was the original one, but I would just love to expand on that.
Pam, what about you? Long-term goals.
Yeah, well, if like 11 months or 10 months can count as long term, we're hosting the NCAA skiing championships in 2026. And so I have been able to be more of a part of planning a big championship and like everything that goes into that. So that's something that's like short term, but kind of long term, month by month, that I've been really fired up about. And one of the reasons I wanted to highlight that is because WSF helped me get to a point where I'm in this position today. When I was at a point where I was really struggling in my previous job, and I was able to call Morgan and be like, I think I'm experiencing everything that's like a nightmare that we talk about in the grant, and I need help. And now I'm in a position as an assistant coach where I'm getting to help plan an NCAA championship with our sport and do huge things. And so that's kind of something I'm chipping away at. But long term, I want to continue to develop high achieving athletes and people. Like 99% of our athletes aren't going to go on to the Olympics. And coaching is so much more than those results. And that's why I'm still in it, is because it's fun to bring on an 18-year-old that's rowdy and can be obnoxious and just like see them transform by the time they graduate. And then I really want to be a purposeful mentor because of how much mentors have meant to me. And so I think right now, a lot of that looks like just forming those connections and making sure, like, when we're at the ski race, like, I'll go to coffee with you, whatever you need, and just starting to build that community because that's what's keeping women in coaching.
All right, Brie. Long-term goals, plans.
Survive it. Yeah, I think I want to keep doing this. I want to keep being a mentor. I want to keep paying it forward, just like Martha did for me. And I truly mean it from the bottom of my heart. It has being able to be this person for someone else and not just it's not just Sid, it's Fiona and Erin. Like I want to keep doing this. I do think it is at the core of my philosophy as a coach, to keep women in coaching and to do anything I can to support girls and women in sport. And I think until my 10-year-old twins have the same opportunities as my 10-year-old nephew, I got to keep doing this. And I just want to thank the WSF and Tara for allowing me to do this so many times. And I hope I can call on you again at some point. And yeah, I'm just so grateful for this entire experience, and it has been incredibly rewarding.
Yeah, Brie, you're part of the fan now. You're not getting away. All right, so we are going to move into the Q&A. So just a reminder, if you haven't submitted questions and if you have any, please feel free to pop those into the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. So one question we got that I'll answer really quickly off of that is, what's the name of the book that I think that Erin mentioned? So it's called Learned Excellence. I am blanking on the name of the author right now, but Learned Excellence is the title, and it is available online or wherever you get your books. So opening this up to all of you, more of an athlete kind of trajectory question. When in your athlete career journey did you start thinking about your post-athlete career, and thinking about, what are you going to do next? Obviously, all of you competed in college, so that's, kind of jumping into that as like you went through that stage. So Sam, we'll start with you. When did you start thinking about what you were going to do next?
Yeah, I think mine was pretty natural with the US school system because I knew I wasn't going to compete after college. And so going into college, once I got there, it was like, okay, I'm going to give it everything I can for these 4 years. I was really lucky that I went to a small D3 school that was completely the place for me. And I stayed there coaching. So in terms of what I do after, mine was pretty set in stone with like the standard path. But again, it was my junior year when I was looking for internships, when Maria Stuber was like, okay, well, you're studying everything for coaching. You coach every summer. Like, wasn't that the plan all along? And that helped me really solidify what I wanted to do.
Bree, what about for you?
Well, back then there were very few opportunities to keep playing. I say that back then because this used to be a big part of my recruiting pitch. I would be talking, you should choose Division 3 because you're gonna go professional in something other than your sport. And then I have to stop saying that now because I've had two players play professionally since they graduated. So I have to say, like, it's likely that you're gonna go professional in something other than your sport. But yeah, back then there weren't opportunities to keep playing, and I was like, I mean, for me it was like, if I'm a coach, I can like hop in and I can keep playing, and it's like this is my way to keep playing, is if I coach, and so and let me tell you, I was jumping in until I started to age out, and so and sometimes I'll still jump in, so yeah, I mean, I think the shift for me was, how do I stay in this? And that was the one way to stay in it. So and like I said, I didn't really know, like we have all said, like, oh, I can do this. And once I figured that out, I was like, oh, I'm definitely doing this.
Erin, what about for you?
I really started thinking about my life after wrestling during COVID and after the 2021 Olympic cycle. I ended up not making that Olympic team. And I know, like, we're getting older, right? So I was thinking, like, okay, what's next? What's next? And I moved down here to Texas Women's University to continue my wrestling career, but also coach as well. And just since being down here, it really scratched that coaching itch. So it was a really easy transition. And I'm still thankful. I'm still competing, not for much longer, but like Briette said, like, this is the opportunity where I can still wrestle the team every day and coach at the same time. So I have really first started thinking about it right after that Olympic cycle and even after this last one. And I just think coaching would be just such an easy transition, and I've enjoyed it so much so far.
So another question that folks had, well, first of all, they said, thank you for the insightful conversation. So shout out to you all for your answers. They are curious if you can talk about a few of the challenges that you may be experiencing with coaching young women right now, and what you do to adapt year to year to best serve the women on your teams. Bree, we can start with you on that one. So I know you've got the insights from your youngins on your assistant coaching staff.
Yeah, I mean, I do have to say it has gotten increasingly challenging to fully truly understand where my athletes are coming from. You know, we make jokes like, you know, back in my day, we used to just, call it getting your bell rung. And now it's like, we have a lot more research and understanding of like what's happening when you have an injury and all those things. And so I think having all of that information sometimes can be very difficult for our athletes. Like they are very thoughtful, they are incredibly smart, and they are very curious about what's happening to their bodies, and so they are on top of stuff. And sometimes it'd be hard for me to be like, hey, can't we just like get back out there and like let's do this, and like suck it up. No. Yeah, like I sometimes am like, oh, help me relate to this. And I think it's really important for me to have young people on my staff to help like bring me down. Hey, coach, this is like, like she's going through some stuff, and like the mental health piece thing for me has been huge. That's just learning how incredibly important that part of the game is. I mean, it's something that we had zero access to when I was playing. And now it's like on the forefront. It's front and center. It's so important. We talk about mental health all the time. We make sure that that resource is available to them all the time. And it's something that, had I've learned a lot about, and I'm grateful to those young people around me who have helped, enlighten me in lots of ways too. But yeah, so it's getting more challenging, but I say that at the same time, like, gosh, they make me like I learn something from them every single day. I'm always like, I'm so lucky to be surrounded by people who are so much smarter than I am. Um, but yeah, so as much as that there are challenges, there's definitely so much that they bring, and are helping keep me young. So I appreciate it.
Erin, what about for you for coaching young women right now in your team? Any challenges or things that you're seeing?
I would say one thing that makes me the saddest is they have really negative self-talk. So really my biggest task each year and goal for myself is getting their positive self-talk up, because whether it's they're very results based. So I try and have them focus like, hey, it's process based, you're getting better, better every day. But also with wrestling being a weight sport, even what they say when they don't see the right number on the scale, so I've been really trying to get them to think more positively, because sometimes they also enter the program with previous coaches that they had in high school, and maybe their self-talk is kind of the negativity that they brought to their start of their wrestling. So it's really rewiring their brain and getting them to see how important they are, how amazing they are, how just understand like not many women wrestle. You're doing something that not many women do. Not many people are student athletes. Not everyone has a sport in college. So just really getting them to rewire their brain and yeah, just keep them motivated, keep them happy, and just leave their college career as stronger and more confident women.
That's awesome. Yeah, self-talk is much more powerful, I think, than people realize until they're in it. Sam, what about you? I know you're coaching some very elite level folks, and how is that?
Yeah. So I have my master's in clinical counseling, and I rely on that so much more than my undergraduate ex-phys degree, that's for sure. And with that, I'm not seeing them as a clinician, but I'm referring out to them a lot, and I'm using my sports psych skills that I learned in classes and just some basic skills for sure. And then also trying to bring in the rest of our staff in that. If like we're in a staff meeting and I definitely have the tendency, I'll sit there and just kind of let people talk, and then I'll be like, okay, wait, my undergrad or like my graduate degree's in this, and like I think I have some ideas. In terms of like resources that I'd like to give out is that the Tucker Center has a new platform, not really new anymore, I guess a couple years old. It's called Coaching Her, and it's all about coaching girls and women, and it's free to everyone. You can register. They just added a menstrual period or like menstrual and health unit, and you can do it at your own pace. So that would be my plug for that. If you're like really curious into this side of things, it goes through all levels. It's for all levels of coaches. Um, but yeah, I think relying on still knowing that like the athlete is the expert in their own experience and that I'm never going to actually know everything that they're going through. So as long as I have my listening ears on and I'm really making sure that we're listening well, then normally the communication follows. I'm definitely finding that helping athletes learn how to communicate is probably my most important job. And so like helping them find the right resources and even like practice conversations with them of like how to like reach out to that resource, just that sort of stuff, I think is probably the biggest skill that I can give them. So yeah, like our ski team has some really high achievers. And then like they still need it. They still got to practice their basic communication. There's still plenty of times we're practicing and I'm like, oh, are you sure that's what you'd want to say? Like, let's take a few steps back. Like we've all been there, right? So yeah, just always trying to help them learn that communication piece and be willing to do it face to face, not just hide behind their phones for sure, which I'm guilty of too. So it holds me accountable.
Yeah, the phones is a big one. All right, we have a question from Dana. What advice do you have for the next group of grant recipients? Erin, you are wrapping up your first year with us, so we'll start with you. Any advice you have for next year's cohort?
My advice would just be to be very intentional. Open eyes, open ears, and just really lean on your mentor. You know, Randy Miller's been a great mentor for me these past couple years, and I've learned so much from her. And just also taking the feedback, right? And know that not all feedback is criticism. It's to help you build. And I just feel like it's also important just to lean on your other fellows and just the Women's Sports Foundation. And that's my biggest advice. Just be intentional and use your resources. Utilize every little resource you have, and it'll help not only your program, but yourself.
Sam, what about you?
Yeah, I would echo Erin on being intentional and just like really leaning into the community. I sent Morgan an email this spring when I was just feeling like, oh, I need to fill up that like cup of engagement a little bit more and was just like, Morgan, like I have some time right now. Is there anything I can help with? What can I do? Because I've had to lean on WSF and it's really important for me to pay it forward. And it's such a great community that normally like a 10-minute conversation with Morgan, I'm like, okay, fired up again, like ready to go. And being a fellow means you're part of that community. So I think leaning into that is the most important part.
Yeah, Sam's gonna regret that she asked me if she can help me with stuff because I've already like tapped her for a couple projects. Bree, what about for you? Any advice for future grantees?
Yeah, I mean, I think Erin and Sam hit on both of the, lean into your community, take advantage of the network that you're going to create. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Um, and don't be afraid to have hard conversations. Sam alluded to this in the last question. I do think these younger folks really sometimes it's hard for them to have difficult conversations. And you'd be amazed that if you're willing to put yourself out there and be brave enough to have a hard conversation, you're going to learn a lot. And you may find that, you know, you were thinking something that wasn't true, or your head coach was, you needed to hear something, had no idea what you were going through. Be open and honest about what you're struggling with. You don't have to it's not all rainbow and sunshine. And Erin talked about this a little bit. It's like you're going to get feedback, but that's your job is to be able to take that feedback and utilize it to grow. It doesn't mean that you're not good at your job. It doesn't mean that you can't do things well. It just means, hey, like here's some ideas on how you can get better. And we all need that. I'm said 24 years in, I'm constantly asking for feedback. How can I get better? And how can I do things better? And so being able to take that feedback is not criticism, but really just an opportunity to grow.
Bree, I'm gonna hop back on for you. Is we have someone who asks, as someone who didn't compete at the collegiate level, what advice do you have to market themselves for a coaching opportunity at a college or university and trying to differentiate themselves from the pack?
That's a great question. I mean, I think it depends a lot on the sport. If there's any way that you can get involved in the associations related to your sport, networking is massive. I mean, I got a text from one of my former players today. She's like, "Don't you know somebody who is involved in up to us?" And I was like, "Yeah, she's not there anymore, but I can reach out to her." And she's like, "Would you be mind giving her my resume?" And so I texted her. I'm like, "Hey, long time. It's been a while." And then we're talking. All of a sudden, we've like sent a million messages back and forth. And now my former player's resume is on the desk of the top person at up to us. So like having a way to build community in your sport, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be a former player. You just have to get involved in these networks and find a way to get connected to people who know people. I mean, it is still to this day. I've always argued that men have these great, strong networks, and I really wish that women had stronger networks like the men. Like, yeah, I'll make a call for you. I still think that women have to be better about that for other women. Like, how can we be? So if you know anybody that's involved in any possible way, to get connected to your sport, I would do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one thing I know Sam and Erin really hit on is the networking part of it in terms of the professional development funding. So part of the fund is funding that's specifically for professional development. And one thing that we really try to push with the fellows is making sure that they're attending coaching association events so that they can start networking and meeting people as they're at this entry point in their careers. And we're excited to have our new cohort. We did have a question about when we're going to announce the next one. So we typically will announce in either late August or early September. We are in the throes of finalizing all of the fun parts of the grant with the paperwork and everything like that. But we are very excited for this new phase. I just want to, before I hand off to Jean, Erin, Sam, Bree, thank you so much for joining us, but also just thank you for being you and thank you for all that you've done throughout the fund's lifespan at this point. Bree, you've been with us for a hot minute with all of your grantees. And then Erin and Sam, excited for both of you as you're, navigating these parts. And Erin, we are all going to be waiting with bated breath June 14th for your big final match. So best of luck to you in that. Jean, over to you.
Thank you, Morgan. That was really inspirational. You all are so great. You've got a great sense of humor, so that must be critical. Each of you has, I can tell you're just wonderful coaches. We're really happy to have you tonight. I just want to thank everyone for joining us this evening. As Morgan said, we will announce our next cohort in the fall. And, first of all, thank you, Morgan, for moderating. You were excellent as always. And I want to thank the WSF team that's behind the scenes because there's a lot of good work that goes into putting a show on like this, if you can believe it. But I also want to just make a final thank you to all of you for supporting the Women's Sports Foundation and the Tara VanDerveer Fund. If you're not a supporter and you'd like to get involved and support the Tara VanDerveer Fund, I encourage you to reach out to Lisa Tour Winkelfoos. She's our Director of Development. I think her email is in the chat, or you can visit our website and learn more about our advocacy and just get involved with women's sports. It's inspiring and it's and as these coaches have shown you tonight. So thank you again for joining us, and we'll sign off. Take care. Bye, everyone.